It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the USA Rugby professional rugby player, Gabby Cantorna. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to play professional rugby?
Yeah, so for me, playing professional rugby was always something that was an aim of mine, but until I was a bit older, it wasn't necessarily something that I thought would work out for me just because of the growth. And as I've been getting older, it's been getting much, much better. So when I was younger, it wasn't necessarily a career path that I had my mind on. I always knew that I wanted to play sports as competitively as I possibly could. But it wasn't until I was through my school, days at uni that I realized it was a possibility for me. And then it really just became about the next step for my ultimate goals and dreams, which is representing the United States at a World Cup. So just kind of made sense for me. But really, I feel like it's more of something that's been born out of my competitive nature. And it was always something, my mom would ask what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I said an athlete, and she said like maybe not. So I'm glad it kind of worked out in my favor, but also it wasn't something that I thought was necessarily super achievable growing up. It was just, I just love to play sports and I love to compete, so I just stuck with it.
What was it like playing college rugby at Penn State?
Yeah, so I went to Penn State for 5 years, and it was some of the best years that I've ever played. It really gave me the opportunity to learn from a lot of people who were had represented the U.S. were still representing the U.S. So I molded my game a lot off of them, and I feel like I just got to. It was one of the biggest growth periods in my life, so it kind of introduced me to being an athlete. What would be required of me as far as off field and on field. And I think it really set me up for success later on in my career.
What was that feeling like of getting to put on that Penn State rugby jersey?
Yeah, so growing up, so I grew up in State College, which is the same town that Penn State is in. So for me, I'd obviously grown up watching them play. My sister played there, my dad coached. So it was kind of, it felt a bit surreal, I would say, the first time. I was also kind of felt like it might have been a bit of a mistake on their part, not on my part. I was happy to have the shirt, but I was wondering if they were sure they wanted to give it to me. But ultimately, I felt really proud to play for a club with such a massive history in the women's game, and it was awesome being able to put on the shirt next to a bunch of legends as well. So it was a really surreal feeling for me the first time, but I would say the biggest feeling I probably felt was a bit scared, but I got over that, I would say.
What was that feeling like of obviously, as you said, you got to play with your sister during your college time?
Yeah, that was a dream come true for me. So she's 4 years older than me. So in high school, we didn't overlap. When she graduated is when I came into school. So we never actually got to compete or play sports together until we were at university. So um, it was really a privilege to get to play next to her. She's kind of who I would say I learned a lot of my rugby knowledge from her, but also she has a really excellent work rate and commitment to those like gritty things that people don't necessarily want to do. So I tried to learn a lot from her, but it was, yeah, I think the first time there was a tear or two maybe from both of us, but it was really heartwarming to get to play on the same team with her. And I think my parents really enjoyed it as well.
What was that feeling like for you to live out the legacy of your family going to Penn State and playing rugby?
It was, when I was younger, I didn't know if I really wanted to pursue rugby. I thought maybe I'd pursue soccer or something else, but I think in the end, it's really fit for me. It's really, rugby is all about community in my eyes. It's where you meet some of your best friends. It's you grow your family. You bring people into your family, and then having that obviously be part of my family with my mom and my dad and my sister. It just kind of made sense for me, and I think it was really, there were some moments where it was nice to see that you've made your parents and your family proud, and that they understand what you're going through as well. So it's one of those things that makes you feel all warm and gushy inside. So I'm glad that I ended up on the path that I chose and got to represent them well.
What was it like coming out of college, getting into professional rugby?
Yeah, so it was a bit it seemed a bit daunting at first. So I when I graduated from college, I went to Denver for 2 years and played with they're now called the Colorado Grey Wolves in the WPL side. And even that was you're training and playing with people that are older than you, have been playing rugby for much longer than you. So it was a bit, I would say, intimidating for the first couple years. And then obviously after my second year there, I transitioned and came over to play in England. And I would say it was the same thing because I mean, luckily here it was a new club for me. So they had just had their first season in the league. So there wasn't like there wasn't a ton of players that were felt really comfortable there. You know, we were all getting in at the same time and all kind of learning and growing together. So it was an easier environment to come into, but it was definitely a big transition mentally. And obviously the speed of the game increases as you go up. So I would say I felt, again, a bit overwhelmed in the first couple of weeks, but then I think I caught on to it.
What was that experience like of going to the Collegiate All-American?
Yeah, so that was a really that was a great experience for me. I was fortunate to go, I think I went to collegiates like twice, and then I was in the U20s for 3 years. So that's like obviously your first taste of getting to play against different countries and being exposed to different styles of rugby other than, you know, the style that you were used to playing at school. So it was really valuable in my learning. I also really enjoyed getting to meet all of the athletes from the other colleges because you get to, you know, make friends. And then when you play them, obviously it's still really intense, but afterwards you get to, you know, be like, wow, what a game kind of feeling. So I've met some of my really close friends from Collegiate All-Americans that I was fortunate enough to play with as we got older as well, in Colorado and such. But it was really great privilege. And especially for the first time as a young kid to put on the American flag over your heart is a big feeling. So yeah, it grew that sense of, it grew my aspirations, I would say, to continue playing.
How was that feeling of playing at the D1 Elite National Championship?
Yeah, a lot of nerves for sure. I played in 4 finals. The first, actually no, I'd say I never got less nervous for the games. Every single time I felt pretty much the same as my first time. Um, so it's definitely a lot of nerves, but it's also the excitement, and it's kind of like, you know, your season peaks right at the end, which is obviously can be a really great high to experience with your teammates. But on the flip side, you know, once it's over, you're kind of like, wow, one game and then there goes the season. But no, for me, it was always a little bit of nervous. And then obviously it was great to be able to experience that with my teammates. So kind of bonds you, and it's a great cap off to the year.
What was that experience like of going to the Exter Chiefs game?
Yeah, so coming over to Exeter was it was brilliant. Really, the area itself is very interested in rugby and very vibrant about the brand of rugby that we play here. So it was my first time really living somewhere where people would recognize me. And that's a bit weird still. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, you kind of, they'll be like, oh, like you're, and they'd be like, how, it's just almost like you're like, how do you know that? But they know because they're really invested in rugby here. They really love it. They come out to the games. They follow us on socials. So it was it's really a brilliant place to be, and it makes rugby very enjoyable because everyone in the community is invested in rugby. So yeah, coming over to Exeter was I think a really good move for myself, just in terms of enjoying rugby and getting to be immersed in an area where it's part of the culture.
What was that feeling like for you to get to put on that US rugby jersey and play for US?
Yeah, so that was a big day for me. I got my first cap at Soldier Field in Chicago. And my parents and all of my extended family are from Chicago, so I got to get it in front of all of my, you know, extended family, my aunts, my uncles, my nonna, my mom's mom. So that was really special and heartwarming for me. But then also I'm a huge Chicago Bears fan, so getting to be in that stadium with my first jersey was kind of like, you couldn't write it better as far as, you know, reaching one of your milestones and achieving one of your dreams. So it was one of the best days of my life, and probably will be for the rest of my life, I would say, because it was just a perfect day.
What was that feeling like of playing in Soldier Field?
Yeah, it was surreal. It's a very big stadium. It's but simultaneously smaller than it looks on TV, which was a weird feeling because you're when you're down on it, you're like, oh, okay, it doesn't feel, too bad. But then obviously once there's people in there, it does then start to feel pretty big. But it was yeah, it was pretty insane. None of us could really believe it when we went over for our first run on the field. We were like, everyone was looking around like this is an NFL stadium. This is crazy. But it was pretty great. The city of Chicago treated us really well on that tour. We got to we had a police escort to the game, all of that stuff. So it was pretty exciting. It was a good moment for us, I think.
Of course, what are some of your accomplishments so far during your professional rugby time?
Yeah, so throughout my career, throughout the WPL, I've won, got second place one year, won first place the next year, which obviously is huge to win the league. Throughout Chiefs career, last year was our first season, so we finished sixth. This year we're still in season, so we're in the top four, which looks like we're going to be making playoffs. Then for me personally, I am the first player on the women's side for Exeter Chiefs to reach 100 points scored for the club, which was great. And I was the leading point scorer from last season. And currently, I am the most accurate kicker in the league. I am also injured, so my stat is staying frozen at the moment, which is helpful. But yeah, so that's probably my biggest things personally as a professional player, I would say.
Of course, what were some of your experiences like playing US rugby?
Yeah, so a lot of them were really, really positive. It's been a lot of growth. So from that first tour in 2018, we played New Zealand, Ireland, England, and we beat Ireland. And then we lost the other two matches. But for us, I think it really showed us, where we wanted to be and the work that we need to put in. So I took that and kind of went away and worked on my own game. Then obviously we had Super Series, which was, we played France, Canada, New Zealand, England. That was a really big tournament. A lot of good learning moments for us. So for me, my journey with the US has been about a lot of growth. I think every time we come together, we're getting better. And I think that we have a lot of players over here in the Premier League. So I think that's only going to help us as a nation. And really, we're just looking forward to the World Cup coming up this summer and hopefully performing well and getting into that Final Four.
What is that like, obviously playing overseas, but then also getting to play for the US and representing the US?
Yeah, I think it's really special. It's really good. You learn being over here, you get to see a few more playing styles. So I play with a few of the Japanese players, play with a few of the Scottish players, obviously the English, the Welsh. We have a few South African. It's a big diversity and a different range of playing styles. So for me personally, I feel like I've gotten to learn a lot from them, which then when I go back into the US stuff, I'm able to apply it for my own skill set within our own team structure. So it's really positive. It can be a lot of rugby, but also that's really what personally I'm looking for. I think the more time you play, the better you get. So I've been really loving having the opportunity to play so many games over here, so that when I do come home to play for the US, I'm up to stuff and ready to compete.
Of course, what is it like playing in the World Cup?
I also haven't played in a World Cup yet. So my first World Cup will hopefully be this summer in New Zealand, and starting in November, August. And I've been to a few to support the girls, but this would be my first one playing. So I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to get that under my belt.
What are some of your future plans in your rugby career?
Yeah, so my future plans in my career, I'm hoping to make the World Cup this coming summer. And then really where I end up would be where would put me in the best position for the next World Cup as well, because I'm ultimately hoping to go to two before I retire. So probably looking to see if they'll take me back here in Exeter, but if they won't, then looking for another club to help develop and grow into.
Of course, who are some players that you look up to in the rugby community?
Yeah, so I think for me, I have two players. The first would be Dan Carter, fly half for New Zealand. He is an absolute legend. He's retired now, but He his style of play as a 10 is really dynamic and electric, but he's also second to none as far as putting other people into space. And then his kicking is also really, 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 really good. So he's somebody that I've definitely watched while I was growing up and always kind of thought I wanted to play like him. And then on the women's side, former U.S. Eagle Sadie Anderson, she also went to Penn State. She was playing when I was in high school there, and playing for the U.S. as well. So I got to, see her a bit more up close, but she has a very similar playing style to him in her, her ability to be dynamic and her ability to put people into space. So being that I lived nearby and got to watch her more frequently, she was really somebody that I looked up to, and wanted to model myself off of.
Of course, what is it like, obviously, having those people that you look up to implement your game after?
I think it's really it's like a really special thing, I would say. It's, I've obviously met Sadie before, so it was really for me getting to know her as I got older, and then, being able to bounce things off of her was really awesome for me. And it really helped me grow as a player. And it also kind of helps you find your own playing style as well. So obviously you admire other athletes, but at the end of the day, you are you, and you're going to have your own skill set and your own strengths. And I think um, being at that age that I was, it was really positive for me to have two athletes that played the same position to look up to. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that I'm a bit different from them, and I kind of have my own playing style as well. So it was nice to have them when I needed them, and then kind of as I've gotten older and more developed, grow into my own style.
What is your game day routines and rituals like?
Yeah, so personally, I would say for starters, I much prefer a afternoon or later kickoff. I'm not so much as a morning person. So for me, depending on what time game time is, I need at least like an hour or two after I've eaten to really digest and not feel sick. So depending on what time game is, obviously I try to eat a big meal pretty early, and then I'll usually only have, apples or things like that. Here going to Chiefs, we have a pretty solid one. So we drive in the car, we listen to like one or two songs because we're not that far away. But we have, takeaway coffees, we have iced coffee, and then we each have like these like squeezy yogurt. So we kind of have a pretty set thing that we do leading into a game. And then for me, my biggest routine would probably be in my personal warm up. So just the number of kicks that I take in warm up, and then the other skills I try to get through. It helps me, focus and turn on pretty consistently. And then I also do have to make sure that I've cleaned my boots before I get onto the field so that my shoes look nice. So people know that, I have good footwear. It's a weird thing, I know, but it's one of my things, I guess. I like to have clean shoes.
What advice would you give those future college rugby players looking to play college rugby?
Yeah, I would advise anybody looking to play collegiate rugby to, for starters, make sure that they, have a clear vision of what they want to get out of the program. So there's a ton of really excellent women's collegiate programs in the US right now. They're all growing. They're all offering different things as far as, support goes, or what kind of schooling they have at that school. So I think the biggest thing would be to make sure that you're visiting and, talking to the coaches and talking to the players to make sure you're finding somewhere that really fits you personally, but can still also support your rugby aspirations and dreams. Because obviously somebody looking to go to school for rugby, that is your first priority. So you want to make sure the level of rugby is good, but outside of that, you want to make sure you have a good work-life balance, work being the rugby, so that you have the ability to enjoy everything else that you're doing, which will ultimately help you stay invested in your rugby aspirations.
What advice would you give those college rugby players looking to play professional rugby?
Yeah, my biggest advice for anyone looking to play professional rugby would be in the US specifically, I would say go find a WPL team, and do your best to just work on your own skills and work on enjoying playing rugby. I think a lot of times people can get, be a little bit too hard on themselves, and obviously everyone has goals and aspirations, but at the end of the day, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, you're going to be much less likely to reach those. So yeah, if you're looking to go from collegiate to playing professional, my advice would be to find, a WPL team that you think you'd fit in well with, and that has, kind of a coaching setup that suits you, and then making sure that you're just finding ways to enjoy the game still, because I think we play better when we are enjoying it, because rugby can be very, very tough. But at the end of the day, it's about who you're with and how much effort you put in. And if you find those two things, often you'll be successful.
What advice would you give those players looking to play USA Rugby and represent the U.S. and one day make it to the Olympics?
Yeah. So if you're looking, I would say if you're looking to play for the U.S. Either in 15s, I would say, again, WPL is probably your best option. If you're looking to go more of the sevens route, I would say WPL will be helpful, but also you want to look into going to some sevens tournaments, getting into contact with some of those teams that go to the invitational, so that you can get a look at, and then just, again, keep developing your skill set and developing your game.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram at Gab Cant _do anything. So GABCANT _do anything, which is obviously a play on my last name. And then I'm also on Twitter at Gabby Cantorna as well. But I would say probably Instagram would be the better route.
Thank you again, Gabby Cantorna, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with the USA Rugby as a professional rugby player.
Thank you.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Gabby Cantorna, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thanks, you too.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.